Hello and welcome to another edition of the Under Center podcast. I'm your host, Daramar, and I'm joined by two of the main members of the Backstreet Boys Tribute Act of Ireland, the Moore Street lads, Fionn Malloy and Al McGrath. Lads, it's been a minute since we've talked last on the show. How are you getting on?
Better than last time, anyway. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I've been pretty good. Watching all this free agency unfold has been a bit of fun. It's not the same as watching football, but there's been a lot more storylines than a lot of years. So at least it's been interesting to keep tabs on things.
It definitely has. It's taken a sort of leaf out of the NBA book with all these trades as well during free agency too. And it's something that I'm sure we'll get into probably next week. I think will be a good time to have a look at it, and we'll talk about winners or losers from it. But I want to go to a bit more of a local side of things because just past week, or this is the second week now. We haven't had a chance to speak about it on the show. This is the second week of the American Football Ireland season starting back here again. 3 years later, after our last game, the North Dublin Pirates played their first game yesterday up north against the Causeway Giants. Football is back and it's great. And that it's back. Unfortunately, the result didn't go our way yesterday. Fiona and Al, I know you weren't available to actually play the game yesterday yourself, so it was just myself that went up from the show to play. Great to be on the field again. Great to play. I'm in absolute agony today. Everything hurts. You will probably see me twitch or move and little grimace during the show. Pay no attention to that. It's fine. Big thank you as well to the guys in the Causeway Giants for their hospitality during and after the game too. And we're really looking forward to the return game in a couple of weeks. Fionn, like I said, you didn't get to play the game yesterday, but I'm sure you were sort of stuck to your phone to the group chat to see the latest updates.
Absolutely, yeah. I think good game. Look, the results didn't go our way. We got to give credit to the lads up in Causeway Giants. They had a little bit of a mini season last season, so that definitely gave them a bit of hand being tuned up, and a lot of our lads are blooding a lot of rookies and getting the rust off. So look, from all I've heard, the scoreline didn't necessarily reflect the football played on the day. So I'm really looking forward to this return leg. I think it's going to be a great game of football. And by all accounts, it was a pretty nice game of football to watch up there on Sunday. So yeah, pretty excited.
Yeah. And of course, the Giants in their new field of Lyon Park as well. So lovely marked out pitch too. The wind was a bit of an issue, but look, they can't do anything about that. That's just the elements. But lovely day all the same. And like I said, great to be back. And the Pirates will be back in 2 weeks' time playing away to the Loud Mavericks. So hopefully we can get the season back on track. But lads, I think that's enough local football to talk about. We'll talk about that more in the coming weeks. Do you think it's time we get on our guest for tonight?
Absolutely.
We are delighted to have former Seattle Seahawks linebacker and 3-time Pro Bowler Lofa Tatupu on the show joining us. Lofa, it's great to speak to you, sir. How are you?
I'm lovely, mate. Did I do that right?
That sounded a bit Australian, I have to say.
What's the word for buddy? Chap? Pal? What do we call him?
I think lad is pretty common over here.
I didn't want to be disrespectful with the lad. I didn't know. You're a lovely lad.
I don't think you could really say a word that would be disrespectful to us if you were trying to say, yeah, friend, mate. Like we do the common thing, and I don't know if you do it yourself, but for me, if I don't know someone's name, I just say, "Hey, man, how are you?" Like, I don't remember. Hey, man, it's great to see you.
I'm good, fellas. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. No problem at all. It's been in the work for a couple of weeks. We're delighted to finally have you on the show to talk a bit of football. And like obviously listeners to the show will know, like two of the guys here are Seahawks fans. We'll try and keep it as broad as possible. We won't keep it to a Seahawks only show because I'm sure Fionn will be only delighted to talk about Russell Wilson and the cliff that he's fallen off now the last couple of years. But let's actually, before we get into sort of your career and playing in the NFL, have you ever had the chance actually to come over and visit Ireland?
I have not had the pleasure. I haven't. Hopefully, maybe the Hawks will play one day over there and I can get over there.
Yeah. Well, look, you have a standing invitation now, as because you've been on the show. You have a standing invitation to any North Dublin Pirates game you want to come to. You are most certainly invited, and we'll give you some good Irish hospitality after the game as well.
That sounds great, fellas. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. We'll pencil you in for probably next week then, right?
Yeah, pencil it in.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's actually get into it, because I was doing the research for this interview. I came across something interesting about your first season with the Seahawks, and an affectionate nickname that the fans gave you, called the Butt Slapper. Do you care to explain that a little bit?
That's a new one. See, everyone's been calling me. I had someone say Lofa the Lion, and I don't know where that one came from either, but they were calling me the Polynesian Lion. And I'll take it. It sounds better than the Butt Slapper. But I'm assuming they're talking about, it's so loud at the stadium that, you know, my first couple games, I was trying to just bark out the call, yell. I'm yelling, right? You know, and no one's moving. And, you know, there was, you know, some older veterans. I'm just a rookie. So they're like, oh, we didn't get the call. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to make sure you get the call. And so, you know, I had to hit some guys, had to hit some fools. But I mean, I don't care how loud you echo your hands and you're shouting, man, it's hell for not just opposing offense, but also me as a middle linebacker, as a signal caller.
Well, that's it, and that's one thing that I guess that we that is not really talked about a lot when it comes to, because obviously they say that the Seahawks fans are one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL, and obviously when the opposing team is on offense, you know, the stadium gets loud. But for you guys on defense, like you're saying, trying to call out plays, it must be really tough to try and actually get the plays across to the guys on the field.
Yeah, and so you have to oftentimes go to sign language or hand signals, you know, to make sure we're all in the same coverage on the back end, because, you know, a guy like Peyton Manning, you know, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, they'll find out if you're not on the same page. And I mean, it's a long day facing them anyways, but especially if they know what's you know what defense you're playing. So it was challenging for us. We definitely enjoyed playing on the road. We love playing in front of the 12s and you know, at home, but it really is. It causes problems for both the opposing offense, but also our defense.
Yeah, I guess that's what you're saying. You might be better to play away from home sometimes as well, because like I said, those home fans will be quiet for their offense at work, so it lets you to call out your plays, no trouble.
Oh, absolutely. And so it was, I always enjoyed playing on the road too. You're going into somebody else's backyard, you know, hostile environment, fans, you know, talking shit and throwing stuff at you. Oh, my bad. Am I allowed to swear here?
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah.
My God. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. It was awesome playing at home, but I really did. I like the road games. So, you know, my teammates could actually hear me.
Yeah. And I guess one of the most intimidating atmospheres as well that you could play in away from home is Lincoln Financial. And that game, I believe in 2007 against the Eagles, you probably had your greatest game in the NFL, 3 interceptions, over, I think it was 11 tackles as well. How was it playing in that game, especially in the rain as well, up there in Philadelphia with that fan base?
Yeah, it was a special game. It was we needed it to clinch a spot for the playoffs, which, you know, made it that much more important and more special and near and dear to me. But when we went on the road, I had a torn oblique against the Rams, and we barely beat them. It came down to a goal line stand the week before. So that I didn't practice all week, and we get to the game, or we get to Friday, and you know, like 8 of us came down with the flu. And I was one of them. And so they put you, when you get the flu, they get you on a whole nother floor. They're like, hey, it's like you're part of the team, but you're not really. They put you in the back of the meeting room. They said, don't talk to anybody. You have to go eat, you know, separately. It was, so it was definitely different from that, you know, standpoint. But I got out there, and in pregame warmups, I'm wondering how I'm going to get through this. My body's hurting more than normal because I got the flu on top of the torn oblique. But I look over in the corner, and the pregame ritual that Julian Peterson and Leroy Hill and I had, we would talk shit to the opposing fans. I mean, And there was one guy over there, and he just yells to me. He goes, Tatupu, in so many words. He said, "You're soft because you're not playing today." And so I turned around. I said, "Hey, you know what? Fuck that. I'm playing today, and I'm going to get an interception. I'm going to throw it over your head to that 51 jersey." And so first play of the game, I get an interception. I run it back. I didn't score. I told him I was going to score. So I guess he could call me a liar in that regard. But I threw the ball right over his head to the 51 jersey. And from that moment on, it was on. I knew we were going to win that game. And, I was it was the best, like you said, and the best game of my life at any level, but especially to have it, meaning a playoff spot. That was what meant the most.
Lofa, when it comes to a game like that, is that something that, like you said, that first play, you got that interception, do you feel the game come to you, or is it more you get so in rhythm, you're like, oh, I know where this ball is going before it's gone, or is it more a sense of playing to your instincts, all the preparation you've done in the week and the game, the ball just seems to find its way to you throughout the game?
I was so out of my mind with the flu that I had no choice to be in every moment, or like they said, being in the zone, right? Like we all know our best performance when you just totally immersed in the moment and it seems so effortless. The game's coming. You can't do wrong. Like in basketball, you can't miss. The hoop seems just huge. It didn't matter what I did. I did drop an interception, though. It should have been 4, and I'll never forget that. But for the most part, it felt like it was just effortless and flowing. So it was a good question, man. But yeah, definitely felt like it was flow state in the moment.
And I want to sort of take it back to your college career, because you started with the University of Maine before transferring to USC, and of course with Pete Carroll. But USC weren't your first choice, was it? I believe it was with Oregon, and you were planning to commit to.
Any Division I school was my first choice. When I went to Maine out of high school, I didn't get recruited. I got 3 scholarship offers to play Division I football. UConn, Rutgers, and Temple. They wanted me to play quarterback, and I took a look around the landscape of the NFL, and I didn't see any 5'11" Samoan quarterbacks, at the time. But I saw a ton of 5'11" linebackers. And I was like, hey, man, if I just watch these guys, Zach Thomas, London Fletcher, Sam Mills, Dexter Coakley, Datwin, I studied every single game that they had. And I just tried to build, because I knew if I had a chance to play in the NFL, it was going to be a linebacker. And so I ended up going to Maine. And then when I transferred, you're right, Oregon was the ones that wanted me first. And at the time, they were at the top of the pack. They were going to Fiesta Bowl and the BCS bowls, and so I was committed to play there. But then, I didn't know my dad had sent the tape to USC, and Southern Cal and Pete Carroll, and so I took a trip down there, and they loved the film, and they offered me a scholarship. They said, hey, if you come here, if we give you a scholarship, will you come here over Oregon? All my family was in San Diego, just south of LA. So I said, yeah, man, I'll absolutely come here. But I took the scholarship thinking that I would have a better chance to play at SC, not knowing that Pete Carroll had just recruited 3 straight top 5 classes. So it became harder to play there than really at Oregon. That's the crazy part.
I bet you the weather didn't hurt either, though, when that decision was being made between Oregon or Southern California. I think that probably made it a little bit easier too, didn't it?
I mean, yeah. I guess I was just lucky to have a choice, but you're right. Palm trees and sunshine wasn't too bad.
Definitely not. And speaking of Pete Carroll, of course, in his career, and your dad, obviously, Mossy, who played for the Patriots for 14 years, and if I'm right, your dad would have probably played against a Pete Carroll. Definitely, he was a defensive backs coach for the Vikings. But was he also in the same division? Was your dad still playing with the Patriots when he went over to the Jets to be the defensive coordinator?
No, I think he would have already been retired. Because I think Pete, that was like early 90s. My dad left in 90. I think 90 or 91 was his last season with the Rams. And I think either 93 or 94, Pete got to New York, I believe. But we stayed in. Oh,
sorry to interrupt you there. So I thought he was defensive coordinator from like 1990.
You know what? He might have been. But my dad's last year though was not with the Patriots. It was with the Rams in LA.
Oh yes,
yeah. So I guarantee you they crossed paths. Like my dad played from 78 to 90, and Pete's been coaching forever. And so, like you said, from Minnesota, and then also New York, and then eventually he came to New England. And when I was in high school, Pete was my first couple of years of high school. Pete was the head coach of the Patriots. Yeah. So there was some familiarity there. I know that my dad still spent some time, in the building with looking at film, kind of scouting, helping out the Patriots. But but out of high school, like my dad had called Pete and was like, hey, he doesn't have a lot of offers, but my boy can play, kind of like standing on the table for me. And I understand, Pete's like, well, Massachusetts, that's all the way across in the country and everything. And so it didn't happen right away out of high school. But then after a year, I think, he saw the tape and he said, hey, we could use him. And then it turned out it was just a perfect fit. I got lucky being there at that time. I mean, you look at all the All-Americans that they had, especially on offense, Mike Williams, Matt Leinart, Carlson Palmer, future Hall of Famer Troy Polamalu was our defensive captain. It was insane, the level of talent that was there.
Yeah, for sure. And other players like that, and like you're saying, you have a lot of connections with sort of the California area and San Diego, of course, being born there, going to USC, and sort of a person who was, synonymous with California and San Diego in that time was Junior Seau, of course, played the same position as you. Was he sort of a player that you sort of looked up to and sort of tried to model your game around growing up?
Yeah, Junior is one of my all-time favorites, and he was the one that had me. His passion for the game is how I tried to bring my passion to the game, because you could tell how much fun he was having playing the game. He was doing what he loved. He did it for 20 years. But yeah, I got to meet him. The Chargers came to play the Patriots. I want to say it was like 94 or 95, one of his first couple years in there. And I got to meet, I was 12 years old. I have a picture of me and Junior Seau outside of the Patriots Stadium. And then fast forward, 10 years after that, and I get to be playing against him. And, I got to see him after the game and say hello. And he also did. He came down to Southern Cal, and he would drop in and, say hi to the Trojans. And, it was such a legend and a guy that one of the best to ever play at the position. And but he was a lot, he said, did I look up to him? Yeah, I looked up to him. He was about 6-7 inches taller than me. Junior he's like 6'5", he was 250, and he could fly, man. So, I had fun watching him and Brian Urlacher and some of these greats, but it's tough. There's not much from their game that you can translate to yours, because they were such freaks of nature athletically and physically.
And it's slightly off topic there. That season with Jim Mora. After that, were you excited to be reunited with Pete for as short a time as it was?
Yeah. I actually felt bad for Jim. He only got 1 year, and I got hurt, and so I almost felt like I let not only the team down but also Jim, because we were. I think we were like 3-2 or 2-3 or 3-2 when I got hurt. And then we only won like one game, 2 games the rest of the year, so I'm not saying if I'm in there, we win, we go back to the playoffs, 10-6, but I think we're a much more competitive group. And, so it was hard to see that happen. I was excited to reconnect with Pete. I had hoped that he would bring the defense that we ran. He brought the defense he was currently running with the Trojans, because he had, Ray Malaluga, Brian Cushing, Clay Matthews, Kaluka Mayava, Keith Rivers. We were running true 4-3 down at at SC when I was there, when we were winning national championships. And then he went to like a hybrid kind of a defense, which, you know, it was much different than anything we had ran before. And then just, I mean, a year or two after, he went right back to the 4-3, which I would have preferred to stay in. But I knew it was special to build something with Pete down there at SC that, you know, people still talk about. And then it was special because I was here for a year as he was starting to try to turn around the culture and, you know, get the winning ways back to the, you know, the Pacific Northwest. I saw what was happening with that first draft. Man, him and John, they knocked it out of the park with Russell Okung was the first pick, Earl Thomas second. Second round was Golden Tate, Kev Chancellor, Walter Thurman, like a bulk of half of the Legion of Boom, and then just some other phenomenal players started, you know, showing up, you know, in those drafts, and it was incredible.
Yeah, and one thing as well, Jordan, your time there, I believe you played in the infamous, you know, Beastquake game against the Saints, you know, that caused the mild sort of earthquake. And like we mentioned at the start of the interview about the Seattle fans, but, you know, it's on the sidelines there watching that play and then seeing probably the stadium shake as Marshawn is running that in. What was it like that night? Well,
my head was already shaking because I had just got knocked out like the series before. But so, we forced a punt, and I'm on the sidelines. They took my helmet, and I'm trying to figure out where I am. I just hear an eruption, right? And the place is shaking, you know, with every single stiff arm or juke or, you know, run, every stride, it gets louder and louder and louder. And, you know, all of a sudden I look up and I see Marshawn jumping across the goal line. And, you know, I look at the doctor and I was like, yo, what? I know I'm at a game. What the hell just happened? And he said, I think Marshawn just won the game for us. And going back and seeing, I mean, that is one of the most incredible runs of all time. But also, I mean, it was one of the most meaningful runs because New Orleans was starting to get some momentum back, and they were only a score down at that point. And that kind of put the game away with a couple minutes to go, a 2-score lead.
Yeah. And sort of then moving on then after your time with the Seahawks, you had a brief stint with the Falcons before calling time on your playing career. And then you sort of gave coaching a try for 2 years with the Seahawks as the linebackers coach under Chris Richard. How did you find the coaching element of the game?
Oh, I loved it. Extremely challenging, which, you know, you as a competitor, you love. Because now it doesn't matter how prepared you are, which I believed I was one of the most prepared for every, you know, situation when I was a player. You have to get that information across to the players. And now the game's out of your hands. You just hope that, you know, they took that information and do the most with it. But, you know, that's the craziest part was I was never nervous for a game when I was playing, not even the national championship, not the Super Bowl. My first preseason game, I had butterflies. Because I was like, did I give them all the information? Because these guys, this is their livelihood. This is how they feed their families. And I understand that. And while that pressure didn't get to me when I was playing as a coach, man, it was incredible. Now I know what it feels like to be nervous because I never did when I was playing. I swear. I believed so much in how hard I prepared and what I was capable of doing that I didn't get nervous. But as a coach, man, every game I was nervous for, like just hoping I didn't let my guys down, you know. But you know, Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright make you look good. I don't know how good of a coach I was.
Look, man, take the credit, man. Take it. That's Bobby's career wouldn't be it there if it wasn't for you coaching those years. Same with KJ.
I'd like to think so, but it was, you know, Ken Norton, you know, did a phenomenal job with those two, much as he did with me and my guys at SC that had a lot of success in the NFL. I think, you know, you look at it, a lot of it was Ken Norton teaching us how to be a pro, teaching us how to go about the game. You know, this is a 4 or 5 time Pro Bowler, 3 straight Super Bowl champion. He knew he was the epitome of being a pro. And that's when I got there, you know, when I looked at KJ and Bobby, I was like, man, these guys, my job is just to not mess it up. Just, and there's something to be said for that, to keep, that high efficiency and that level of play. But, Ken Norton did a phenomenal job. And then Bobby and KJ, man, those guys are like coaches. I'd be surprised if KJ doesn't end up coaching because how much he loves the game. And, Bobby's going to play probably like 4 or 5 more years. So, but maybe down the road, he'll be a coach too, because that's how much these guys love it.
Yeah. And have you got any more aspirations to sort of get back into coaching, or are you sort of done with that sort of side of the game?
No, I the only reason, because everybody asks, why was it so brief if you loved it? I loved it. I have 2 young kids, right? And right now they're 10 and 7 at the time. They were 3 and 6. And I missed their 2nd birthday and the 5th birthday, because in football, you almost have to plan your pregnancy around the season. Mm-hmm. And so, because you want to be there for the birth, right? So my first one was born in February, and it just so happened the combine was right there on his birthday, end of February. And then my youngest was born in July, and so we were always in camp. And so, there's sacrifices, right? To playing and actually coaching this game. And I just was not willing to sacrifice that time. My father passed when he was 54. If I'm lucky, that means I have another 15 years here. I'll take that. That sounds like a great time to me. If I'm lucky, right? That's all perspective, fellas. But I can't. They're only young once, and they're, I don't know if you guys have kids. You look pretty young, but you guys are kids. But
I'm glad these filters are working now for this.
But this is the one time they're going to listen to you, right? So you better do it right. And yeah, man, it's I loved it. I did love coaching. I think I could go back in some capacity. I would probably rather go on the scouting side. I really loved evaluating and finding value. Talent jumps out at you, but if you can find value, especially those later round guys that undrafted, those are the guys that can really make your team strong if they outperform their rookie contracts.
Yeah. And look, hey, if you do want to get back into the coaching thing, I think there could be a defensive coordinator position opening up over here on this side. So,
Pirates?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's it. That's it. The money's not. The money's not great. Well, actually, no, the money's not there. But there's.
Hey, just fly me out for the games.
Yeah.
That's it. You get to become a permanent member of the show. That's payment in itself. There you go.
Quite an honor too. Awesome.
But sorry, Al. I believe you had a question there.
We were talking about the Saints game there, that playoff game, and I want to take it all the way back. It was your rookie season, right? 2005, where you won the West and then went on to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
What was that like in your rookie season to go that far and then ultimately, unfortunately, lose the game?
Yeah, no, it was. It's all about the journey, man. And the crazy part is, I came off of 2 straight national titles with my teammates at Southern Cal. And so when I rolled right into the Super Bowl, I didn't expect anything less. I always believed that we have a chance. And Seattle, I landed in a perfect spot. Seattle, they had a great offense, and they had a lot of tough guys on defense, and it just had to come together. And I think with some of the free agent acquisitions and then the drafting, me and Leroy Hill, who both started that rookie season, we were able to really make a name as a defense. It was just a tough bunch of guys that loved playing football and loved, the camaraderie and the brotherhood that it was. And I think that's what you find with most championship teams, is that it's just the best team. It's not always the best talent or players. And we just showed up and kicked ass, man. That was one of the most fun years I ever had playing football. And it didn't end the way we wanted to. Shit happens. That's life. But it was out of our control. So that's the way you make peace with it. Is there's nothing I could do about those calls that happened in the game. I'm not mad at the Steelers like a lot of people. They're mad at the Steelers. If we got the calls and I got a ring, I wouldn't be I wouldn't care if they were mad at me. It would be the refs, right? So either way, you can't be mad at a team, or it's not like I'm going to say no to that ring if they gave it to me.
Like that, you couldn't see them complaining with the shine bouncing off the ring anyway, I'm guessing. That's just the way it would be. But I want to actually ask about some of the sort of the current sort of the Polynesian crop of players that we have in the league at the moment, and two that sort of stand out for various reasons. And first is Tua over with the Dolphins. He seems to be getting a lot of negative press that he's not going to be the guy in Miami, like this guy who had like an 8-game win streak last year with the team, and I think that sort of being unfairly criticized. And another guy is Vita Vea. Is a player who actually I love watching play, because being a defensive tackle player myself, the man is a brick wall. No one can run by him at all. But I'd love to get your view on sort of those two players and how you think they're performing in the league.
Yeah, I think Tua, he's awesome, man. He really is. I think he's just been inconsistent. And you look up, he'll have 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then the next week he'll have 202 interceptions. And so, it is surprising that's how strong that team was, that that they were able to still put together an 8-game win streak with that happening. Because, like I said, it was every other week you didn't know who was going to show up, but he is a tough competitor, and I know he puts in the time, and I think he's going to be just fine. It's quarterbacks. It's a hard position to play in this league, man. And so I think he's doing an all right job, and he'll figure it out. And with Vita Vea, I mean, God, I remember watching him play over here at UW, and he was running down on punts. He was the personal protector. I'll send you guys a couple of the plays. He's made some open field tackles on punt returners 50 yards downfield. And I mean, this is a guy we're talking about, 340, 350 pounds. And like you said, you can't move him. And so he's special to watch, and he's been good for a long time.
Yeah. Sure. Let's talk about this. I've been putting this off, but let's talk about the current Seahawks, and let's talk about this offseason that they've had so far. Probably the most interesting and definitely the most debatable one that we've had. And we'll get into Russ and we'll get into Bobby, but you mentioned him a little bit earlier at the start as well. But there was a change of defensive coordinator. Your old linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr. was obviously let go, and Clint Hurt was promoted to be the defensive coordinator, and also Sean Desai coming over from the Cleveland Bears as well. What have you made of sort of those coaching moves so far in the offseason?
Well, we'll see, right? It's I know Sean's done a lot of good things, and I know they have a rapport going back to, I think Clint he spent a year or two in Chicago with Desai, and so there's some familiarity there. And even we who was Pete's guy from he just went to Minnesota. We even had him in for a minute before he took over and took the guy, what's his name? Just came from Denver.
Eberflus? No.
I know who you're talking about. Ed Donatel.
Yeah, Ed Donatel. Yeah, and so I thought the collection was going to be good for Clint, who's going to be a first-time coordinator. But the fact that him and Desai know each other, I think it's going to go well. And maybe they, like Pete said in his press conference, we've maybe been a little too arrogant in the way we've approached things on defense the last couple, because we've been so talented for years, right? When you had the Legion of Boom, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, those guys, that front seven, with Bobby, KJ, but then also Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett, Brandon Meebane, all these studs. You can run whatever scheme you want to. You really can. And because they're not going to beat you consistently with that much talent on the field. And that's what it comes down to. Talent wins. But, it's good to see that, Pete's open-minded. That's the one thing I did take from coaching with Pete. If there's any way to get better, Pete's going to find it. And he's going to, turn over every stone, exhaust every, opportunity to get better. And that's what a true competitor does. So I'm interested to see how it shakes out. But, I thought North did a good job for what we had last year, and kind of the situation, our offense was not really putting up many points. Russ in and out of the lineup. There was a lot of things that, did not go well for our defense, but I thought they held up pretty well. There's just a couple games we were on the field too long. Minnesota, Tennessee, Green Bay. Other than that, and then special teams. If we make a couple kicks, we might be in the playoffs at the end there.
And so with the departure of Bobby, the linebacker spot is all of a sudden looking very bare. We have Brooks, who is obviously very good. Then behind him, we have Cody Barton, we have Ben Burkervin, John Radigan, and a few other guys, Aaron Dunker from the international program.
Yep.
Do you think they kind of stick with those and try and work out, or is there someone you like even from the draft that we could pick up?
I expect them to pick somebody up in the draft, but I don't see Barton staying at middle linebacker. I think he's going to slide over to Will. He's shown to be very, serviceable. He should be a starter from what I've seen, in the few games he did play. He started against Minnesota back in 2020. He had 14 tackles, a couple for a loss. When Bobby did get hurt, he went in, and his first few plays, those first two series against Chicago or Detroit, he had 2 tackles for loss. So I'd expect those 2 guys to be starting. And then we're kind of running this hybrid, 3-4 kind of bear stick defense. So it would be, I think Brooks will move over to Bobby's spot, and then Barton will come in and play where Brooks is playing at the will, because he was drafted several years ago. I knew he was a true Mike. I didn't see him playing Will for very long. And so that kind of had me alarmed or scared that we might lose Bobby in the near future. But, that's tough. Anytime you lose a guy like Bobby Wagner, a future Hall of Famer, perennial Pro Bowler, and just the leader that he is. I thought when Russ was gone, we keep Bobby. But and if I were to look to the draft, like you're saying, there's a couple guys I've broken down. That dude, Devin Lloyd from Utah, is absolutely insane. It's like 6'3", 235, 240, and he could play all 3 positions, Sam, Mike, or Will. So there's a lot of value to have that guy on your defense. But we got a couple needs. You still got to get a corner. We got both our safeties back. You said we signed Diggs. That's big. So we'll see. I'm excited. I know everybody, when you lose 2 Hall of Famers, the sky's falling, right? But when those first few years that Pete and John got together back, 10, 11, 12, it was still pretty solid on defense. And then, we got lucky in the draft, finding a 3rd rounder Hall of Famer in Russell Wilson. So hopefully we could do that again. But if you could build a strong run game, you got Rashad Penny back, and you can build a strong defense, you got a chance in this league, and I think that's what a lot of people, they overlook. Like, if you can control the ground game on offense and you can have a tough defense, you got a chance in every game.
Lofa, you mentioned that name. It makes Darrell wince every time you do. Russell Wilson, he's obviously moved on, synonymous with the Seahawks for so many years. What does that mean for the Seahawks in terms of offense? Do you expect that philosophy to change significantly based on who comes in? And another follow-up question that maybe you won't want to answer. I don't know what your connections are with the Seahawks at the moment, but do you think, was that a purely financial decision? Was it a tug of war between Pete Carroll and Russell that eventually ended in, well, Pete's not going anywhere the way he's established into the structure of the Seahawks, or was it just time to move on and try and get some new blood in there at the quarterback position?
Good questions, my man. Well, the first question, I would expect them to go back to a run first mentality. And I think we put too much on Russell to carry the team. And, I don't care who you are. If you're throwing it 50 times a game, you're probably not winning many games. I mean, that's what Stafford was doing to Detroit for a decade. And, guess what? He goes over to LA. He gets with a defense and a ground game, and he gets a Super Bowl ring. He played his ass off, but he finally had some help at 2 spots where, I think Drew Lock will be fine if we have that last month, that stretch where we had 150, 180 yards rushing a game, I think now your play action works. Now all this whole playbook opens up. You're going to get one-on-ones with Metcalf and Lockett, but for so long, we were coming out and just throwing it. Like first half, Russ had like 20, 25 attempts in one half. It's like, we're losing because our defense is tired because they're always out there and we're not putting up any points. Like we haven't given the defense anything to be afraid of, in terms of a run threat. So that play action is not going to work. I don't care who you got back there. But now you saw how much it opened up as soon as we got the ground game going. So I do expect them to have a shift those last 3 games, Russ, I think he might have thrown it over 30 one time. And he had over 250 yards each time. He had several touchdowns. I think he ended up 9 touchdowns or 10 touchdowns to 1 interception in that last month. And so that's what I expect them to get back to. And I don't think Drew Lock will fight them on that. I think he'd be more than happy to have some help, on the ground and then defensively. So, and then the other question, I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't even care to venture, I guess. But, obviously Russell, there was talk of him and his camp. When we were 12-4 and won the division, I would not expect anybody to be unhappy. I don't care who you are. If you're on that team and you're committed to that team, we just won first in our division. And yeah, we're not happy with going out in the first round to the Rams, to a divisional rival, but we won another, we're hanging another, in the rafters, we're putting up another banner. Life should be good. Now we should be working on those last 2 steps. What do we need to get over the hurdle that is the playoffs? But when that came out, that was concerning. And then you fast forward and then you have the season we have. And now, here we are. And I knew something we had to give. But yeah, Pete and John are locked up for 2025 and 2027. I didn't expect them to go anywhere. With Russell's age, I know quarterbacks are playing into their 40s these days. But, Russell's 33. And, is he worth, I think, what is he? He's getting $25 million or something? Because he's going to have to, the new bar is $45 million. Mm-hmm. 45, 50 million. And so you have to sit there and think, is he really worth $45 million? In the right circumstances, yes. But with what we have in front of us, no. And I think that's what the decision came down to it. So you trade him for as much as you can get, and you wish him well, and you thank him for all the memories. Best quarterback. Matt Hasselbeck's my quarterback. I love that guy. But, Russell Wilson's the best quarterback in franchise history. And, it was incredible what he did in a decade. The all-time winningest quarterback in his first 10 years. He broke that record. And he did it with a lot of help, but it's still incredible what he was able to do in his time here. And so you wish him well. But, we have a chance to start over and do it quickly. And it took like 2-3 years with Pete the first time, whether it was at SC. By the 3rd year, we were in the national championship. Seahawks, by the 3rd year, we were in the divisional. By the 4th year, they won the Super Bowl. So it happens quick. And I know with Pete and how old he is, he wants it to happen even faster. So I'm hoping they're rebuilding with experience at heart and, at mind. So.
Yeah. I want to ask this question then. Do you think because of what happened with Russ, and I'll get a quick answer out because I know we're a little pressed for time here, but do you think with the benefit of hindsight that you mentioned the list that his agent gave last year, and one of them was the Bears, and I believe there was an offer there for the Bears for multiple picks and players. Do you think that the Seahawks should have taken that and then used those picks to get Justin Fields last year? Or do you think that the players that are in this draft, if they are to draft a quarterback in this draft, that it was the right time to move on from him now?
No, I don't think. I think the way they did it and they handled it was the right. You just came off a 12-4 year. You're first in the division. You're not gonna. That's not the time to say, "Hey, Russ, we'll see you later," because you're literally 3 games from the Super Bowl. And so, with that in mind, you try to come back. Unfortunately, Russ got hurt, had the worst year of his career. It wasn't bad. His numbers were still very solid for the year he had. It's just not the Russell Wilson numbers we're used to. And, I don't – Justin Fields, look, the thing is, at the quarterback position, you better have a winner and a fierce competitor. And that's what Russell Wilson is. And so, there's a reason he was passed on 3 times by every team, or most teams, 2 times by every team. And then, he won in the 3rd round. So it's, I think if you can find a competitive guy that holds onto the ball, that does not turn it over, you can win and you can develop that confidence, And I think Russ is one of the rare guys that he will always have confidence. Even when he got drafted, if he was undrafted and had a chance to start, you'd see the same Russell Wilson, like unwavering confidence, like I was born to do this. That's rare, right? That's Hall of Famer. But I think you could find guys and win with guys that I feel like the quarterback position has been a little overvalued because of the few greats that we've seen, right? And I'm talking like Brady, Manning, Rodgers. But I feel like these quarterbacks are getting paid so much these days. It's now becoming kind of like the NBA star players. Like, well, all right, well, I'm going to go play for this team because I can win a ring there. All right, well, we'll see. And then it worked out for Stafford, So I think a lot of these other quarterbacks are starting to think that, like, hey, well, if I was over there, I'd win a ring. So it's becoming more of a legacy thing now, what I believe.
Yeah. Well, listen, Lofa, you've been so generous with our time. We just want to ask a few other things. Obviously, you have your own Seahawks podcast, the Believe in Seahawks podcast with actor Brent Darvin. I hope I'm pronouncing the second name properly. Send my apologies if it was wrong to him. But one thing I want to ask about it especially is you have some very interesting, you could say, intros to your show. How does that come about?
We keep the screen off. Usually we're either happy or pissed off based on the previous Seahawks. But there's like a little brief moment where like if we turn it on, we'll both we wear our emotions on our sleeves, so we'll show what kind of mood we're in. So we keep the camera off until they say, hey, it's time to record, and then we'll hit it on, and then who knows? It's kind of, we don't plan it. I think that's good. It comes off more natural and better that way. Sometimes he'll talk about his weekend, which I don't care about. And I let him know that I don't care. But it's, man, it's been a lot of fun. It kind of happened, just came about through COVID. I had some time on my hands. I love talking Seahawks. And so I did a guest spot, and then just they're like, hey, come on, in a couple weeks, come on. And then they finally like, hey, want to just make a go of this and have it be our show. And I love it, man. I still get my football fix, like I'm watching the game with intent and purpose outside of just being a fan. I get to break it down and tell them, what I saw and kind of use my experience, from that vantage point. But it's fun, man. And then, you guys know, how long you guys been doing your show?
Just over a year. This was our first full season now doing the show. It came about through, pretty just before around lockdown. Actually, we started doing it too.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. You're talking ball with your boys. It doesn't get any better than that. And so, yeah, man. But the intros, they're wild, man. Sometimes they go too long.
And how'd you come up with the name of the show?
They actually came up with it. So Believe, BLEAV, is the podcast network. They have a ton of shows with a lot of former athletes, and so a lot of them will be Believe in. But we're actually, we're changing our name because Brett and our producer Katie, they've been trying to make merchandise, and every time they try to print something that says Hawks, it gets shut down. And I told them we were going to have this problem. And so if you guys have any suggestions, you let me know. But we have to find a new name.
Okay. Well, Okay. Well, on the edge, was it the Emerald? No, that has Hawks in it too. It's really tough now without Hawks. It's really tough.
I'm thinking about just calling it Believe in Lofa. What do you think, fellas? Let's get rid of Brett. Let's get rid of
Let's put the star. Let's put the star name where it needs to be. Right
there, we go. Lofa, 3-hour style Joe Rogan podcast with you and getting someone on. We're there for that, man. We're there for that.
Man. Well, fellas, I appreciate you, man. Would love to do it again, like during the season or whatever. Jump on and talk Hawks and or Commanders. What are you guys called?
Yeah, the Commanders now. Just recently, I still just call them Washington just to be safe. God, they might change it again in a couple of months.
Yeah,
God knows
it sounds so terrible. I'm sorry.
They're still the football team to me.
Hey, look, everyone complains, but our big problem in the last few seasons has been winning. So if they start to win, I don't think anybody's going to care what they're called anymore. So we just got to get that fixed, and then we'll be okay.
Well, you got Ron Rivera. I like him. He's a great.
Yeah.
He's a great.
We're going in the right direction.
Yeah, and I like Heineke. It's tough though. It's tough. You need a consistent ground game. I don't, And who's the back? Gibson. I like Gibson.
I like Gibson a lot. Yeah, and we re-signed McKissick as well. That's going to help a lot, I think. So.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Bill's GM wasn't happy about that.
A couple years here, yeah.
But listen, Lofa, one last question. Sorry, before we let you go, I have to ask you about ZoneIn CBD. It's obviously your company there, repping the T-shirt as you are. How did you get into sort of wanting to start a CBD company, and how has it helped yourself personally and your recoveries?
I got into it because it changed my life forever. I played football, as you know, for 6 years in the NFL, and I left because of all the injuries. My career should have been longer. And in the 6 years, I had about 10 surgeries, 15 plus concussions. And, when I got out of coaching, I brought some property out here because cannabis had become legal. And so me and my business partner, who's a former linebacker, we took over operations of the grow. And I just started, I always loved cannabis, but I had to put it away for the time that I was in college to the NFL, and that was a mistake. It was, it's something that has benefited a lot of people, not just football players, but the trauma that we go through physically, mentally, emotionally, even like it has put me back together. I feel stronger than I ever have. And I'm about to be 40 this year, and I feel better than I did in the years I was going to the Pro Bowl. So, but for a couple of years, as I made this drastic, because it's so hard to really just put it into like a elevator pitch, like 30 seconds here. But the things that it's fixed in my life, I'm forever grateful for. And so for 3 years before I even started ZoneIn CBD, I was just buying hemp derived because there's two plants, hemp, cannabis. They're both cannabis plants, cannabis genus, but hemp is the one with little to no THC. So it's federally legal over here. And I was just handing it out to friends and family and watching them, reach their potential and become their best self. And so I was like, man, this is too good to not share with everybody. And so when the Farm Bill got passed in 2018, put a team together, and we set off on the mission to just keep being messengers and spreading the word. And it's changed a lot of lives in the last couple of years, and just gonna keep going, man.
Yeah. Just, I know if I had some here, I could definitely do with some now today after getting this day for sure.
Yeah. But it's great for the mind and body. I think really, because when we talk about mental health, man, it's becoming more prevalent. People are putting more time and energy into it and making sure you're right up here, because everything falls into place after. I remember when I was in the NFL and I had my best body. At 25, 24 years old, I didn't have my best mental health. And I can't imagine how much better of a football player, I would have been if I had all of that together, now. So it's, it's going to extend a lot of careers, which, I'm happy for these younger guys that are getting to hear my message and my story. And it's going to put a better product, not only on the field, but also at home and in the community. It's, I've never been more, we call it ZoneIn because it's like, flow state, being in the moment. And So no matter whether I'm working out or whether I'm with my family or in business, I am totally in the moment and taking advantage of, the opportunity at hand rather than drifting off elsewhere or thinking about the past, and that a lot of us, we don't live in the moment. And that's really where our problems start is you got to be present, to be grateful for what we have.
Yeah. Well, we need to get laws changed over here so you can get that international shipping sorted out.
As soon as it does, you let me know.
For sure, Lofa, for sure. Listen, I really appreciate the time. You've been so generous staying on as long as you have for us. Before we do let you go, do you want to do a little social media plug for the podcast, for ZoneIn, and obviously for your own personal
I'll do for you guys. Don't worry about mine. What do you guys need me to say? Under Center Podcast?
No. Well, sure. Look, listen. Under Center Podcast is the best podcast ever, and that's we're going to quote you on that now. When we do, we're going to do a preview. I'm going to clip this here, and we're just going to put it like is the best. You don't even have to say it. Just mime it or something. I'll go underneath it. It's fine.
Hey. Everybody, this is Lofa Tatupu. I'm with the boys and the Under Center Podcast, which is the best podcast in the world. We'll be at number 1 very soon.
And we didn't even have to talk dollars about that just yet. So
that's how generous he is.
He means it. He means it. Lofa, like I said, we really appreciate the time, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. We will definitely have you on again, hopefully just ahead of when the season starts, if not definitely during it, for sure. But like I said, once again, thank you so much.
All right, fellas, appreciate you. Stay blessed.
Thank you. And lads, as always, I should say thank you to you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's where we're going to wrap up. Like I said, follow us on our social channels at Undercenter Pod on Instagram and Twitter. That's where you'll find all the latest updates. YouTube, Undercenter Podcast. Audio side, the exact same thing. Just search Undercenter Podcast. You'll find us there. Subscribe. You're kept up to date of all of our shows, and you can listen to previous ones. But that is where we're going to wrap up this edition of the show. So until we see you next time,